Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Running Through the Jungle. I'm your host, Justin Lacey, joining in with Tim Lyons. Our boy, Brandon Herriott, is not in today, but we do have a very special guest, and we'll get to my man down here at the bottom here on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please be sure to like and comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel so that way you can turn on those post notifications. So that way you'll know when our next episode and other content drops. But as I mentioned below, we got a very special guest today. We're doing a crossover edition of our NFL offseason talk. So with some of our division rivals, and we are starting with none other than my man Kevin Tate here. Kevin, how you doing, my brother?
Jay Lacey, what's happening, man? What's up, Tim? Thank you guys for having me.
Welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
man, I'm just here to talk Steelers and answer whatever question the enemy has about the Steelers.
And I'm glad you do that. Now, I know a lot of Bengals fans. We have a lot of Bengal fans that listen to the show, or not even have to listen to the show. You probably already gathered persona from how Cincinnati fans generally are, is that the Steelers were always our number one rival. That was the team that we hated the most. But you know what? Over the last few years, that's kind of changed since then, since Joe Burrow kind of became the quarterback. Now I don't really feel like that rivalry just is kind of like butted down. But usually how I've always defined Bengals Steelers rivalry was not really a rivalry. It was always sort of contrived based off of what happened in 2005. And Bengal fans don't want to go into that, not even myself, but that's more or less because of the Carson Palmer knee injury, and it's sort of just domino effected from there. Big Ben just had our number. It was ugly. I'm done talking about Big Ben. I hated Big Ben for the longest time. But how did you always saw the Bengals Steelers rivalry from your perspective?
Well, the Bengals have since you talk about the Bengals are good. So the Browns were never good since they've been back. The Browns were never good. So the Bengals were the sometime rivalry. The Ravens were their main rivalry, but the Bengals probably got about 5 or 6 AFC North division championships in there somewhere. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it might be a little high. It might be not 5 or 6. It might be 4 or 5. I don't know. But you know, the Marvin Lewis years and stuff like that. The Bengals always played a tough brand of football. They was dirty, but they was tough. You know what I mean? So we always respected the Bengals, man. You know what I mean? We didn't we
I
didn't we
appreciate
didn't
that.
we didn't look at them like little brother like Cleveland was when they came back
Right, right.
until just about now, really.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's crazy that you say that because there's always this understanding that the Bengals were always like kind of looked at as maybe not the little brother, but the middle brother that's compared to the big boys. And that was always Pittsburgh and Baltimore because you got the Super Bowl championships. But yeah, you're right. Cincinnati has fielded competitive teams during the Marvin Lewis era a few times. They've won 4 division titles: 05, 09, 2013, and 2015, respectively. And you know their thing was they never did anything postseason wise, and that was always the giddy up. Never could win in prime time, and you never could win in postseason game. And as I stated before, Pittsburgh usually was the number one rival that always had our number, and that was always tough to shake. Those are those old narratives from the Marvin Lewis era. This Joe Burrow led Bengals team is different. They've crossed off those narratives and was able to take the team to the Super Bowl, back-to-back AFC championships, and now they're considered the number one rivalry to the Kansas City Chiefs. I know everybody's talking about Buffalo and now more recently Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, but would you agree that the number one rivalry is actually Cincinnati to Kansas City more so than those other two teams I've mentioned?
I think fan wise, fans look at it like it's Kansas City, Buffalo, because you got Mahomes and Allen going at it, shootout style. But
Mm-hmm.
if you talk about who gonna compete and who can beat Patrick Mahomes, that's that boy Joe Cool, man. You know what I mean? I
Right.
think he, if my memory is serving correct, you guys probably can tell me right. I think he's like 3-1 against Mahomes.
Yeah.
He is. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
see, y'all kind of own him like we own Lamar Jackson. That's
you know
that's
what?
that's facts. Lamar Jackson 1-3 against Pittsburgh. In the one game he won because Juju fumbled in overtime. He shouldn't have fumbled. I'm sorry, he shouldn't have won that one.
That
Yeah.
was in 2019, was it?
That was 2019. And
I
that, that's
remember
that's
that.
that's the game Mason they took the face mask off Mason Rudolph helmet.
Yeah, you got beat
I
with
Yeah.
the
remember that. You know what? Because Tim, I'm going to let you ask a couple of these questions here when we get to it. But let's actually start into going into talking about the Steelers offseason. Well, season in review in 2023. A lot of people didn't think you guys were going to make it to the playoffs, but you did. You know, the offense wasn't always great throughout the season, even though you beat the Bengals twice. You did mention you did sweep the Ravens. Yeah, they'll say, like, well, Lamar didn't play in week 18. But Lamar did play in what was that, week 4? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
it was early. And Jay Lazy, we actually 7 out the last 8 against the Ravens, just to put that out there. But go ahead.
Respect to that. And Lamar has had his struggles against Pittsburgh
Mhm.
historically, and it shows on film too. And that earlier game when you guys played them in your house, it did not look good for Lamar. Now his receiver dropped a lot of passes, but he also made a lot of stupid mistakes too that game.
Mhm.
But nonetheless, Mike Tomlin to me has always had fielded competitive units on his teams. And it always seems like that no matter how bad you might think the Steelers are, they're never bad enough that you think that they're out and down and out. Like once again, they've went over 500 again in Mike
Mhm.
Yeah.
Tomlin's career. Like, come on, that's just crazy, insane coaching at a high level for Mike Tomlin. We over here in Black and Orange land, we got so much respect for Mike Tomlin and wish that that was something that our coaches was able to achieve at a high level too. Now we did go over 500 this past season, but at the end of the day, Mike Tomlin, you cannot say enough about the coaching job that he has done. But I'm going to ask Tim, do you have a question for Kevin before we move on to the next topic here?
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I know I always give Tate crap about being a Steelers fan, and us Bengals fans over here, and it's a love-hate relationship. One thing I always tell G, and G when him and I are talking is, don't ever get it twisted. I have zero love for the Steelers, but I
Thanks,
am
Tim.
going to sit here with one eye open and see what you guys are doing. What you guys, it's an AFC North rivalry. It's not like, I don't hate you guys. As fans, I'm I'm really lighthearted when it comes to football because it's football's football. And we exchange words throughout the season and talk smack and all this other stuff. But it's football is the camaraderie that brings us together. So,
Yeah.
as a Steelers fan, Tate, I do appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
So Kevin, I want to hear directly from you regarding of how you feel like the success rate of last season kind of unfolded and why it's setting you guys up for the offseason that you currently have in this time. And we'll obviously get into the quarterback conversation between Wilson and Fields, but nonetheless, I want to hear from you regarding your guys' situations.
Well, I think the Steelers, well, we were 10-7 last year, went to the wild card game, went up to Buffalo. I mean, Josh Allen versus Mason Rudolph. Yeah, but Buffalo gonna win that one. You know what I mean? Uh, but overall, it was a good season. The season had its pockets, right? I mean, like that we were at one time 7-4 in first place in the division, and Kenny Pickett got hurt, and Mitch Trubisky went in and proceeded to lose to Arizona, New England Patriots, and the Colts back to back to back. Then Coach Tomlin put Mason Rudolph in, and they got hot. But I mean, I think a lot of Steelers fans, and I'm glad you mentioned and praised Coach Tomlin, because that's what a lot of us Steeler fans do. There are those Steeler fans that don't, that want him fired, that blame him for everything. I mean, I try and tell them, don't you know, if they got rid of Coach Tomlin, he'd have a job within an hour.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Within an
Mhm.
hour. But the season was good. I mean, I think it was above most people's expectations. When you start 7-4 and lose 3 in a row, two of them to teams that are, I think, 2-10 at the time,
Yeah, they
the
were
Patriots and
well
the
below
Cardinals, well
500.
below
Yeah.
500. Yeah, and both home games.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
when you lose those, the fans kind of lost their mind. But Tomlin's losing the team and all this, that, other. But at the heart of it was poor offensive coordination and poor quarterback play. I mean, that's what it was. I mean, the defense gave up some yards, but they were 6th in scoring and holding teams to no points. I mean, every game we won, the defense held the opponents below 20 points. So, that we weren't getting offense. The game, we would have swept the AFC North. We lost to Cleveland 13-10 because Kenny Pickett couldn't put a two first down drive together against a field goal. And we ended up losing to Cleveland in overtime, where we would have been 6-0 in the AFC North. So, like you said, Mike Tomlin always has a team ready to compete. And we might not be as good as we think sometimes, but we're never going to be as bad as y'all think.
I think that's a great way to define that. I think that's a great way. Perfect definition of what you said. We might not be as good as we might think, but we're never as bad as what y'all or the enemies might think.
Right.
And I think that's an absolute great way to define it. Although I gotta defend my Bengals here a little bit. Those games would have been different if Joe Shiesty was in there now.
Yeah, I mean, they probably would have, but I mean, I think we expected
y'all. Play.
I think we expected y'all to beat us opening game season before last season.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean,
right.
Just that pressure, TJ Watt, and Joe was coming back from something then, so he wasn't 100%. But
he came back from
it would have been different,
the kidney.
Though.
He had a lacer. I couldn't remember the appendectomy. That's what it was. Yeah.
Right.
Which at this point it was okay. It was just a bad game. But on the other end of the spectrum, I think that Pittsburgh played that particular game really well in game planning for Joe. Even though it does suck because it was like, well, he did kind of throw the game-winning touchdown just to block extra point that caused us to get the L ultimately in the end. But at the end of the day, we're not here to make excuses. Jake Browning, he was also playing pretty decent up to that point against Pittsburgh the second time, and he didn't play well. He played really bad, and that's not an excuse that us Bengals fans can make because Pittsburgh had a ton of injuries that particular game and moved Patrick Peterson, I remember, from cornerback to safety, and he got an interception that game too.
We were dealing with injuries a lot this season, but that's just from the Pittsburgh style, and when we get to it, we're talking about hopefully upgrading quarterback play, but Pittsburgh style the past 3 or 4 years, you got to muck it up and win ugly, man. But that's Coach Tomlin's game plan, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Your two wins against the AFC North that really had kind of like I put stamps on oh yeah, those are absolute Steeler types win. We already mentioned earlier against the Baltimore Ravens in Acrisure Stadium, but the other one was your home game against the Browns too. Yeah. Because the Browns, everybody thought that they were going to come in and just they had the better roster, so to speak. But one of the things that I keep identifying when I watch this Steelers team when they go against Cleveland, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, everybody's always putting them in conversations and neck, like those guys are even. Why does TJ Watt always have the better day every time he's on the same field as Myles Garrett?
I think TJ plays with a different veracity, man. I mean, Myles Garrett is just a freak of nature, right? I mean, that boy like 6'5", 265 and chiseled, right? And TJ go back to Wisconsin all season and chop trees. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Rocky versus Drago, right? In Rocky 4. I mean, and so TJ just cut different far as that mentality go, man. You know what I mean? I mean, if you put them by next to each other and put their stats up, you'll pick Myles Garrett. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like I said, TJ just a different animal, man.
Follow-up question. Did you think that Myles Garrett, and I like Myles Garrett, do you think he deserved Defensive Player of the Year?
Nah, Cleveland was the media darling this year, man. You know what I mean? That's how Kevin Stefanski got Coach of the Year. That's Myles Garrett got Defensive Player of the Year. Joe Flacco got Comeback Player of the Year. Come on, man.
Jimmy Schwartz got Assistant Coach of the Year. Oh my!
Oh, see, I didn't even know that, but yeah, see.
Yeah, dude, I can't even tell you.
That's what it was.
I can't even tell you who should have won it, but I think they just kind of went with the lesser of the evils of
Ryan should have won Coach of the Year.
Who did?
Ryan should have won Coach of the Year from the
Nico Ryans. Oh, for sure, for sure.
He definitely should have won Coach of the Year.
I agree.
That's why they took that can of whoop out on them in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these regular season awards, they gotta change the guidelines on some of them because I think overall, I think it was a truly a down year to be comparing people's stats overall, but nonetheless, it is what it is, man. But TJ Watt still gets his love. He was the former reigning defensive player of the year a year prior to that. So I'll give him that.
And actually, TJ, I feel like, and I'm a Steeler fan, so some bias there too. But I mean, TJ should have two more of those things, not two. He should have three. They gave it to Aaron Donald one year, and they gave it to Myles Garrett this year. I mean, 19 sacks to 14 sacks, and if you look at all the other metrics and stuff, I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
But okay, I get it.
Yeah, we feeling like our boy Trey Henderson doesn't get enough love, and he somehow always seems to have like those numbers that's up there.
Yeah, he had more sacks than Myles Garrett.
He had more sacks than Myles Garrett, Danielle Hunter. He was second in the NFL. And I felt like if he would have stayed and played the rest of that Browns game, maybe, but I don't know. But we can't let you go without addressing a couple of things. But number one, we have to talk about the elephant in the room regarding Pittsburgh, bro. All right. So obviously the big storyline is you guys traded Kenny Pickett for chips and cookies over to the Philadelphia Eagles, your interstate rival. You also stole Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, we just sent the cookies to them.
Bro, he just sent the cookies to the Bears.
You didn't even give them cookies, bro. You gave them a stale piece of gum from a baseball card pack from the 1980s.
Bro,
that's exactly what y'all
gave them the leftover bag, the empty bag after they ate the chips. They gave them that in return for Justin Fields, man. It's crazy. But you also did sign Russell Wilson, which personally to me, I thought it was a good swing at a guy that he's getting his salary covered by the team he just came from and got cut from. So it's really no real risk to you guys. Same with Justin Fields. You late round pick, a guy that has some high upside. I think Justin Fields, his career was a little bit enamored and failed because of Chicago and their overall system, how they, planned around him to begin with, to where it may not be like that going to Pittsburgh. But talk about your guys' quarterback situation and what you think that we should be expecting going into this season.
Oh man. So, and Tim be around some of our Steeler podcasts and stuff like that. So we know, man, I've been on both those guys all off season. I mean, even when he's playing in Denver, people were saying Russ was washed. I'm like, Russ is not washed, man. Sean Payton offense just don't really work for him. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when we were able to get Russ for the vet minimum, and Denver's paying and check this out, we go to Denver and play them this year, so Denver gonna be paying Russ to come beat them. That's funny. But yeah, man. So we're able to get a veteran quarterback,